So Trump has talked about several times, and more recently, a couple of days ago in a cabinet meeting, that he wants to get rid of the IRS. He referred to the tariffs, saying that we raise so much revenue that the average person doesn't even have to pay an income tax. And that would be fantastic. That would be a huge boost to the economy. Actually, more importantly, is the moral issue. What right does the government have to just take your money, right? What does the government do with this money? We saw what happened with Doge and all the crazy expenditures. It wasn't just crazy; it was it was purposely destructive. It was malevolent. Okay, it was evil, right? So you rob somebody through taxes, and then you pay for basically the destruction of people. So Trump, and this is in a video and an article. It's a very brief article. I'll put that in the description below. He says this a couple of times, right, to get rid of the income tax. And like I said, that's great, and especially for moral reasons. But in the long run, you can't do that. Let's for a minute, let's talk about let's repeal the 16th Amendment, right? Let's completely get rid of the income tax. Get rid of the IRS, repeal the 16th Amendment, and replace it with like voluntary indirect taxes, like tariffs, like sales taxes. But in order to do that, you also have to decrease the size of government, right? You can't fund this multi-trillion-dollar government with just tariffs and sales taxes, right? We have to borrow all this money from the central bank to keep the whole system turned over. The income tax is a symptom of two problems. It's a symptom of the central bank. You notice how the income tax came about the same time the Federal Reserve was established. And it's also a symptom of people's belief that the government is there to take care of them. So they don't have this belief in their own self-efficacy. They think that some higher authority, some other authority, is going to take care of them. And you can't get rid of big government as long as people believe that the government is there to actually help them. Okay? The government can help you in the sense of protecting you. It can protect you from criminals because it's a body of force, and that's what a body of force should do, you know, in morally, like in the appropriate way, in the appropriate sense. But it doesn't do anything effectively. And in fact, really what it does is it produces the opposite. Government gets involved in education. Everywhere it does, it produces sheep. It produces people who are either really dumbed down, or it produces people who that just don't know how to think. They can't even think critically. You have a war on poverty, right? The welfare state. And what you do is you're rewarding poverty. You actually create more poverty that way. The government wants to get involved in food and drugs, right? So we have a corrupted system where the people who work for, say, I'm not going to name them, certain corporations that do the genetically modified system, where they have genetically modified organisms and the glyphosates they spray on those. But see, these same people, is a revolving door. They also go to work for the FDA, which then turns around and approves the product from the company that they just came from. It's a conflict of interest. Government attracts some of the worst people. They attract power-hungry people, okay, at the very top. And do you think such people would have an interest in educating your children? Do you think such people would have an interest in keeping you healthy? Of course not. And so that's what we have. And as long as people don't see that, they don't see the evils that government does. They don't, for example, pay too much heed to what happened with Doge and all the weird and really evil stuff that the federal government was spending money and giving money to these non-government organizations. If you don't point that out, you're not going to get rid of the big government. and you can't really get rid of the income tax, or it's kind of hard to do. As long as there's a big government, as long as people believe the government is there to help them and they don't realize the government's there to screw them, you're always going to be taxed and you're always going to suffer inflation. Okay. To roll back the taxes and inflation, you have to start with the government is only necessary to provide protection, basically.